Hello Stackers! Today, in this video, we're going to be covering off loop, which is one of the most commonly used front-end components inside Socialstack. So firstly, what actually is it? Well, whenever you have a list of things, like here for example, a list of nav menu items, it's being rendered by a loop. Similarly, inside pages, you have a list of pages here. This is also being rendered by a loop. So essentially, whenever you're listing things from the database, loop is a very popular option. It's not required, you can use other techniques, but it has a lot of features including things like pagination, searching, and so on. So it's particularly versatile and definitely recommended. So in terms of actually getting into using it, let's go ahead and pop open some code. So I've got my project here. First thing I'm going to do is just generate a UI component that can actually start using loop. So on Windows, I'm going to do that by holding down Shift, right click, and open a command prompt. So this will either say PowerShell or command prompt depending on how your particular computer is set up. So when I've got this command prompt open, I'm going to go Socialstack generate UI and then just invent a name here. So in this case, let's go ahead and do a loop of FAQs. So we'll do FAQ list. So in this particular component, it's going to just simply list out the FAQs in the database. Hit enter. So now that will have created a UI source FAQ folder. Inside there is our new list component. And then we've got our two new files that it's just generated for us. So if we go ahead and open this up. So this here is our basic component. So I won't go into too much detail about the actual aspects of this here, but we'll just get it so that this component can appear in the admin panel. That just requires prop types like this. So if I simply save this file, go over to the admin panel and just do a quick refresh. And if we go into the homepage here, I can actually go ahead and actually add the FAQ list component to this page. So obviously right now it won't do anything. The actual component doesn't render anything at all, so it won't be visible just yet. But we'll save this, and the homepage should now just be completely blank, like this. Okay. So, because loop is so popular, it's actually added as one of the example imports. So if we just simply uncomment this, we can get rid of the other two lines as well. So we've now got loop available to our component. So I can go ahead and start actually using this, just like any other React component. So we could just do loop and loop like this. So inside here is what it's going to actually do each time it loops over something. And it's a function, but we'll come back to that shortly. For now though, we need to say what it's going to actually loop over, which is simply a prop called over. So this has a value that can either be an array, you could just give it an array of things, or you can give it an API endpoint for it to actually hit and run over for you. In that case, it's simply a string, and it's going to be the entity name followed by /list. So for example, if we wanted to loop over pages, then it would be page /list. Now the actual entity names, the easiest way of getting a list of them is to go into your database, and you'll get a list of them right here. So each table name. So we either have a sort of email template, frequently asked question, which is the one that we'll be interested in, locale, nav menu, page, and so on. So we'll grab this name right here, frequently asked question. So frequently asked question /list. So right now as it is, this is going to grab this API endpoint, get every single frequently asked question, and then loop over them. But right now it's not actually going to do anything with that because this function here is completely empty. So we need to add that function in, just like this. So each time it loops, it's going to give us the FAQ, and then it's up to us to actually do something with it. So for now, we will just go ahead and return a simple div element, which is going to show the FAQ's question. So now the actual field names here are simply the field names as you see in your entity. And if you're not sure where that entity is, you can also look at the column names in the database. So we have question, answer JSON, revision, and so on. All of these are available to us inside JavaScript in general. The only difference is the actual field name has a lowercase letter at the start. So if I go ahead and save this and then go and refresh the page, we'll now see our list of FAQs coming in from the database. You'll see that these 4 here match what we see here in the admin panel. Okay, that on its own isn't super useful. We might want to show the answers as well. So one thing to note is that these answers are actually a canvas. So it's got this kind of editable canvas going on here. So if we want to actually display those, we need to use a canvas component. So we'll go ahead and import canvas. But this is a header. That itself isn't a requirement. You can simply use whatever layout here you want to. And then canvas and canvas. And we'll give it the answer JSON. Nice little bit of formatting just to make sure it's nice and clear. Okay, so let's save that, go and refresh it. This time we have a nice big question followed by the actual answer. If, for example, I had added something else in here, like say an alert with some text, hello world, this will be visible here as well, simply because we're rendering it with that canvas component too. Okay, cool. So let's say rather than simply looping over everything, we might want to actually filter this. So we want to say, I want to only display a certain selection of these FAQs. That is done with a prop called filter, and it's an object. So inside filter, we're going to say where, and then we're giving it an object. So each field on here is what it's going to directly match on. So for example, if we say where ID is 4, we'll save that, refresh this, and then we only get this one result, which is one which happens to have an ID of 4. And you can confirm that as well just by adding a simple console.log, the FAQ. This is inside our little render function, so if I refresh the page here, we'll see our object, and it does indeed have an ID of 4. Cool. So that on its own isn't super useful. Maybe we want to say where the question contains a certain piece of text. So, for example, if we do where question contains how, this is only going to display the questions that contain the word how, which is how do I make modules, what's loop, and how do I use it. We can again confirm that by just taking a little look at the admin panel. In here, we'll see that none of the other ones, except these two, contain the word how. Now, if you wanted to do an AND statement, so for example, where question contains how, and the answer contains the word frontend, then we'd simply do a comma and just add another field. So answer JSON, because remember the field is called answer JSON, so we've just got to make sure we're using the same field name there. Where answer JSON contains, let's say, the word frontend. Okay, so if we go and refresh this, there's only one question that satisfies both of those things. Its title contains the word how, and its answer contains the word frontend. So this is how you get a simple AND statement. But let's say you wanted to have an OR instead. So let's say the question contains the word how, or the answer contains the word the. In that scenario, we simply turn this where object into an array, and then each entry in that array is just a separate object. Like this. So, as it is right now, this is going to say where question contains how, or the answer contains the word frontend. So we just simply change this to the word the. It should make it a little bit clearer what's going on here. Okay, so in this question here, this one has the word how in the actual title, and the word the in the actual answer here. So that one happens to just cover both anyway. This one has how and the in the answer as well. This one doesn't have how in the title, but it does have the word the in the answer. So this one here is covering where the question contains the word how, or the answer contains the word the. And that is the basic intro to Loop itself. So Loop has a lot of additional properties. You can, for example, make it live, so if a new FAQ is added to the database, it shows up immediately. And you can also add things like pagination. But those will be a topic for another video. So I hope that helped. And yeah, enjoy looping.